The last section under the Selection tab is to choose your advanced conditions for selecting fittings on duct lines. Currently what we've had it on in all the tutorial thus far is we have been running a duct line forward automatic, we have duct line with branches checked, and we've always had the always button checked. This option, when checked, means select all the fittings on the line at all times. However, we can also choose the option when there is a change in. This option allows us to select fittings on the duct line only when specific changes happen. Currently we have 4 options: size, direction, elevation, and top bottom. Underneath these particular options, we also have the ability to choose previous fitting, selected fitting, or next fitting. To start demonstrating, we're going to say let's select fittings on the duct line forward. We want to do the duct line with branches, but instead of using always, we're going to say only highlight the fittings when there's a change in, and we're going to select size. Now notice here we're going to say only select the selected fittings. What this means is when there's a change in size at that specific fitting or the selected fitting, the point at which the size change happens, that fitting and that fitting only should be highlighted on this duct line. So we're going to press OK. Practicad says highlight the duct line forward. And here you can see before we click on the first piece, we've got a duct line with a transition, we have an elbow, and then we have a duct line turning up. And we're going to click on the beginning of the duct line, and Practicad is only highlighting places where there's a change in size. You can see that the transition, there's a change in size. You can see there's a change in size at the boot tap because the boot tap happens to be a smaller segment of this branch. The last section under the Selection tab is choosing the difference between the always option and when there is a change in. Thus far, the entire tutorial, we've been utilizing the feature always. What that means is if we choose a selection criteria like duct line forward, and we've done it for fittings, we want to select the fittings on that line always, regardless of any change the duct line might make. However, we have advanced options where we can select fittings on a particular duct line when there's a change of a specific type. In order to do that, we're going to select the option when there is a change in. When we do that, we get to choose between 4 different types of changes currently. We have size, direction, elevation, and top bottom. Underneath that category, we also have the ability to choose between previous fitting, selected fitting, or next fitting. First, we're going to say let's highlight a duct line forward, but only highlight the fittings on the duct line where there is a change in size. And what we're going to do is choose the option selected. Selected means the fitting at which the size change happens. Previous or next would be select the fitting before the size change or select the fitting after the size change. We're going to run this automatic once using size and selected. We're going to press OK. Practicad is going to ask us to select a fitting at the beginning of the duct line. We're saying duct line forward. Here you can see the duct line consists of a transition, we have a boot tap, we have a drop cheek elbow, and then we have a duct line running up as notated on the right hand side. We're going to select duct line forward now. When we do that, notice that the only fittings highlighted are fittings where change sizes happen. For example, the transition, we have a change of size at the boot tap because the branch got smaller. This is a drop cheek elbow. The depth has been shortened after the elbow, so this is where a size break happens. And you can also see that we have an elbow on the right, and because the depth has switched on this elbow, we went from what was around a 36 by 18 to about a 30 by 30 on the out. We've also highlighted the elbow, and because we've chosen the option selected, Practicad has highlighted only the point at which the change happened. So each fitting that causes a size change has been selected. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go back into the Selection tab. This time we're going to say, let's not do change in size. Let's do change in direction. This time we're going to say change in direction, and we're going to run selected. We're going to press OK. We click on the beginning of the duck line. Now you'll notice that the only places that cause changes in direction in this particular case is going to be at the elbows. So you can see that only the elbows on the duck line. We have chosen selected fittings. So what that means is at the fitting that the direction change happens, we should highlight it. So currently we only have 2 elbows. However, we're going to change the exact same selection auto to do previous and next. Here we're going to say, let's do previous, uncheck selected, and do next. What that means is let's go to where the direction change happens, but instead of highlighting the fitting at the direction change or the selected fitting, highlight the fitting before and after. Notice you can have more than one checked at a time. We're going to press OK. We're going to select the beginning of the duck line. Now notice that Practicat highlights the fittings before and after the direction change. So on the isometric view, you can see it's the fitting before this elbow and after this elbow. And then it's going to be the fitting before and after this elbow. So this is how we can use a combination of changes plus choosing between previous, selected, and next. Now we're going to run over the option for elevation changes. Here we're going to say run when there's a change in elevation. And this time we're going to choose selected fitting again. We're going to uncheck previous and next. We're going to press OK, and now we're going to click on the beginning of the duck line. Now notice the Practicat is going to highlight the transition because there's been a change. The transition is actually dipping down as notated by the elevation tags here. And then we're going to have an elevation change at the elbow. The elbow is drop cheek, so though the bottom is the same, you can see there's a change in the top elevation. Here it's 11 foot before the elbow. Here it's 10 foot 8 after the elbow. And you can see in the isometric view that we go up into a riser. And right here you can see that each one of these fittings has a change in elevation because they're vertical. Therefore, each fitting was highlighted during that selection auto. Now what we're going to do is run the last scenario we have currently. That is top bottom. If we choose this, it doesn't apply specifically to elevation changes. It's only going to apply specifically to fittings that will have a change in top or bottom. So if we press OK and then we choose the beginning of this duck line, you'll notice that it highlights the transition and elbows because they both have top changes and bottom changes. And you'll also notice that Practicat currently will also highlight regular elbows if in fact they're turned in a direction going up or down. So top bottom will usually be fittings that have the top, bottom, center change, offset center change parameters, or if the elbows turn up and down. Here you'll see that the rectangular duck was not highlighted. There are no top bottom changes for the rectangular duck, and most importantly, the fitting itself starts in a different elevation as opposed to the elbow here, which comes at one elevation and finishes off at another. So there's a slight difference between those two options. Most of the time you can choose either one and it would work just fine. So that'll conclude the selection tab parameters.